You know, sometimes life is about full circle, and that can be a good thing. You can rebuild without feeling guilty about rebuilding a lab. And this is what this podcast episode is all about today.
The Little Root Lab is a homegrown, self-learning journey into IT and cybersecurity, narrated by Simon Arnold. It is being built from the ground up, documenting progression through systems, networking, and SOC concepts as it develops, including the mistakes, the learning process, and the real-world growth that comes with it. It is hoped that viewers find value in the series and are able to take something useful from the journey as it unfolds. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to the Little Root Lab, which is a podcast about my journey through cybersecurity from having zero information coming up to 8 months ago to being interviewed by 5 different companies for SOC Analyst Tier 1 after only 4.5 months of self-directed learning. And you join me today. If you just listened to my last podcast, it was pretty short. It's because I knew that I was close to a full circle moment, and today was the making of the full circle moment, really. The title is really rebuilding a SOC lab from scratch with Wazuh. I'm gonna give a bit of an indication, really, of what it meant for me, this full circle moment, immediately, and then just explain it. Really, it's the fact that when I started with Wazuh, I didn't entirely realize that how much Wazuh Manager, Indexer and Dashboard were taking up usage of my RAM at 16 gigabytes. And I'm quite happy that, you know, I'm running on a very lean system without much, you know, flexibility. And I think really and we go into removing certain areas just to bring it back to Wazuh from a complete new install, really. And yeah, before I start, you know, explaining what we go through today, what went through, I was really just drilling in so many sudo, nano, journal, systemctl, Wazuh Manager, what else? I was even doing some ping at some point just to check connection. Wow, so many things. The biggest takeaway from me from input of different, I don't even know what they're called, you know, inputting just different commands, I guess, is the difference of using the -purge to then using --purge. I learned a lot about that. That was fascinating, and yeah, it was really good. So I just finished exactly what I'm going to explain to you today. So welcome back, and this is so valuable for people that are using Wazuh at the start. So today I rebuilt a full security operations center lab from the ground up on a Kubuntu system using Wazuh as the core detection engine, as you all know. The goal wasn't to build a full enterprise stack, and that's what I've come around to realize, that I can still make it full functioning for alerts and logs and things without going into Indexer and Dashboard. But it was to create a lightweight manager only SOC environment that can still perform real log analysis and intrusion detection without requiring heavy infrastructure like dashboards or indexing clusters, which I've just said, you know. And these days, when RAM is so expensive and SSD is so expensive and difficult to get hold of, we've got to deal with what we've got, right? So the problem I started with, okay, so the original setup had become unstable. I was running, you know, what is it? I was running sudo systemctl status Wazuh -manager, and it always failed. And I believe now it always failed because I had indexer and dashboard kind of running and using up, precious RAM as well. And I'll tell you what the changes were when I kind of rectified that. So when it came to custom rule modifications for SS8 brute force detection, it caused the system to become difficult to maintain. Like I said, I've had a level head the whole time. The manager service began failing, and then I would do a restart on Wazuh Manager and then check the system again, and it always was then, enabled. And I just got really fed up with it, to be honest, and configuration drift made it unclear what was actually working anymore. At that point, the only reliable solution was a full rebuild. So I decided to start fresh. I couldn't repair the bloody XML stuff that I'd put into Wazuh for SSH. Was it the brute force attempts, the logs, and, possible brute force attack kind of information there as well. So I removed the existing Wazuh installation, including the manager, file beat, which is new to me, dashboard components, indexer components, and all leftover configuration directories. And it's lovely. It's lovely. I was touching on the RW minus R minus RW and everything else. When you see that in theory, you've got no idea of how that works. But I was using that so much today, I couldn't explain it exactly right now, but I'm getting there. So the goal was a clean slate, no partial state, no legacy configuration issues. This is important in SOC engineering. If you can't trust the baseline, you can't trust the alerts, right? The cleanup process was actually quite fun. The cleanup involved both package removal and manual file system cleanup. I used apt-based removal with purge flags to eliminate installed components, followed by manual deletion of leftover directories such as /var/ossec, right? So during this phase I also learned an important Linux detail, that single dash flags like -y are shorthand options, while double dash flags like --purge are full descriptive commands. I found that bloody fascinating. Misplacing these dashes can completely change how a command is interpreted, because I was doing a single dash purge. And then I found out that actually a double dash purge was so much more effective, as I just told you. So the small detail caused by some early confusion, but it reinforced how precise Linux command syntax really needs to be. I mean, you can't miss a trick here. So what happened, with the repository and the key setup issues, when reinstalling I encountered a key step, adding the Wazuh GPG repository key, and capitals have never ever been so important as they have. I've been using capitals a lot, but I guess I've been using capital letters a lot today. At first the system returned an error saying there was no valid open PGP data found, and that turned out to be caused by a bad or incomplete download of the key file. So essentially the system wasn't receiving the actual signing key, and once corrected using a more robust curl command with proper flags, the key installed successfully in the repository trust chain was restored. And again, I say this all the time, learn your most basic commands, everyone out there. Curl, for example. Grep. Know that the line facing upwards is called pipe, and it separates the first part of what you're writing to the second part, okay? Network and repository resolution. There's also a temporary issue where the system could not resolve the Wazuh package repository domain. However, after verifying DNS connectivity and retrying, the system successfully reached both general internet services and the Wazuh package server. This confirmed the issue was temporary and not a persistent network failure, which is really good. And I suggest when you do a ping, just go for google.com first of all to see if the ping is kind of active there, and then just connect with Wazuh. All right, and hopefully you get a success. So the final installation was the manager-only SOC architecture. That took longer than I expected. It's because I was just cleaning up stuff in the background. So instead of installing the full Wazuh stack, which includes the indexer and dashboard, I intentionally chose a manager-only deployment. This keeps the system lightweight and focused purely on log ingestion, rule evaluation, correlation logic, and alert generation. Okay, so no UI layer, no heavy indexing backend, just the detection engine. And this design is ideal for a lab environment or low resource machine like mine, and probably like a lot of you out there that don't want to spend, I don't know what it's cost now. What's it costing? I mean, from the Late Light Linux episode, I think it came out today. I think I listened to a couple of episodes this morning where one of the guys was installing fresh RAM into his new computer. I think he was coming at, instead of $40 for an 8 gig RAM component. It's now 80. So this stuff's really expensive. So I have to run lean on this. I do. I don't think there's any actual more space in my Mac OS, even to take it apart and even put any more RAM in there. So the current result, at the end of the rebuild, Wazuh Manager is installed and running. The system is stable. Alert pipelines are active. Over 2,000 alerts already being logged in alerts with alerts JSON, and the environment is fully operational for SOC testing. So what's this lab going to be used for next? The next stage will be detecting SSH brute force attempts, which I have been doing before I wanted to make changes. Building frequency-based correlation rules, testing false positive versus true positives, refining detection logic using real log data, and validating everything using controlled attack simulation. So we bring it into closing really. When you're doing self-directed learning, it's lovely. You don't have anyone else to help you out. And for me, it's just been a full circle moment. It hasn't been like, oh, I've wasted so much time. It hasn't. It was just understanding the environment and how it all interplays with each other, really. So, what started as a broken and unstable configuration is now a clean, minimal SOC detection environment. The key lesson from this rebuild is that in security engineering, stability matters more than complexity. A simpler system that you can fully understand is far more valuable than a complex system you can't maintain. And that's really my takeaway in moving forwards. And it's lovely now to put in sudo system ctl status Wazuh Manager and to see it enabled than no and get into a rhythm, which I didn't want to get into, that it wasn't enabled, that it failed. And that's because I had indexer and dashboard also on the system too. So keep your systems lean, everyone. Enjoy what you're doing. Remember your self-directed study and learning. You will come to that full circle moment. Keep going. Keep doing what you love, and I'll catch you on the next episode.